I finish all my quilts with the double fold binding, which gives a nice firm edge. It's the edge that takes all the wear, so that's important. And a nice folded edge there for when you want to hand sew it down to finish it. I cut my binding 2.5 inches wide, and I join all the strips with a diagonal seam. This means that when you fold the binding in half, the seam is offset, which makes it less bulky, and the diagonal seam is less visible. Ideally, you want the last join you make when you come to the end of your binding to look exactly the same as all the other joins, and this is how you do it. So I've sewn the binding on all the way round, and I've come back to the beginning again, and I'm going to make that join. I've shown lots of people how to do this many times, but it seems to take a few times before you get it, so this is a visual reminder. I've left plenty of space because this takes quite a bit of space for manoeuvring. Overlap the two ends. The overlap here needs to be exactly the same width as your binding that you started with. So one way you can do it is to use a spare bit of binding and trim it off. So that it's exactly the same width, like that. Or, of course, you can measure it 2.5 inches. There we are. Now I've got a 2.5 inch overlap, like that. So there we are. I've got the two ends overlapped by exactly 2.5 inches, which, if you remember, was the width of the binding. Now this is the tricky bit that people find hard to follow. So lay this bit down. See, I've turned it over right side up. Second piece, turn it over right side down. So we're going right side to right side, and I'm putting it on at right angles like that. Okay, pin. Now draw a diagonal line corner to corner. I'm going to use the 45-degree angle on my ruler to make sure I get that exactly right. Make a pencil line like that. To check that's in the right place, I take a couple of pins and pin them exactly onto the pencil line, like that. Take that pin out, and then let it flip back so that I can see if it's the right length, and that looks good. This is really awkward, as you can see. This is why you had to leave plenty of space when you sewed the binding on, to do all this manoeuvring and get it under the sewing machine. So there we go. I'm exactly on the line I've drawn, which is also marked with pins. Sewing exactly down that drawn line. And here we are. Just neatening up that seam I sewed at the sewing machine, slicing off the excess. Then ideally you would press this open with an adjacent iron. I'm just going to finger press it for now so that you can see what's going on. Fold it back on itself. Pin the binding in place. Look at that, perfect fit. then I can sew that last little piece in place, flip it back, and that join looks exactly the same as another join somewhere else. Can't find one. Another join. Yeah, another join. Looks exactly the same as that one. And no one will ever tell where you started and finished. And that's the invisible join.